So hi, it's Dawn from Dawn's Dirt. Dirt can mean gardening, dirt can mean soil, dirt can mean animals, dirt can mean chickens, dirt can mean anything we want it to mean. Politics, religion, I like to talk about it all. So welcome to the show today, and I'm pretty excited today because I've got my friend Dana, who is also a coach. You help widowed moms navigate through life, and so super excited to have you on the show today. And you're here today to put me on the hot seat, are you not?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how I feel about this. And we're also winging it today. So this could be sketch and scary. And here we go. I guess we'll see how open and honest I am because, yeah, I hope your questions are good. So thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
Super excited to have you here. Just right off the hop, I want to bring it personal. I'm going to start off before you start asking me questions. I want to hear just a touch of your story because your story resonated. When I first heard you speaking, your story really resonated with me because I had lost my dad. My dad was, started the greenhouse that I grew up in. And then when he passed away, my mom was still doing bedding out plants and selling them and things like that. So my mom was widowed at 49. She still had a 12-year-old at home. And so just in a nutshell, what is your story?
Yeah, so quickly, I lost my husband it'll be 3 years ago next month. And at the time I had twin 1-year-olds, a 3-year-old, and a 9-year-old. So I feel like the thick of parenting as it can get, right? I had 3 kids in diapers. No one slept. Well, most of them didn't sleep through the night. And it was like, this is my life now. And so it was like, in that moment, I had to decide, what is my future going to look like?
Wow. And so here you are 3 years later and you're starting a business, a coaching business. So that speaks to your resilience and who you are as a human being. And were you Dutch? I can't remember. Were you Dutch?
Yes. So my parents are like first generation Canadian. So that means I'd be a second generation Canadian.
Yes. And so for sure, you and I have something very similar. We are purebred Dutch blood. So if you look at pedigrees and breeds, we are the Dutch. And if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. And so this is going to be a good show today because, yeah, here we are, the 2 Dutch women chatting about homesteading, farming, and all the rest. So yeah, so I watched my mom do it. You're doing it. So proud of you, and I'm so proud that you're starting a business. And if I'm just going to throw this out here now, we'll get more information from you at the end. But if you're someone who is just widowed or just had a significant loss, reach out to Dana because just talking to someone who's walked through it, I think is just makes all the difference between surviving and thriving. So or am I out to lunch? You know your business better.
No, totally. Like, I feel like at the beginning of my journey, I was desperate to find another woman who walked the path that I could walk and then could reassure me it's going to get better. Because the thing about grief is it never goes away. But then the flip side of it, people are like, you're always stuck in it. And I don't find that to be true either. It's like this happened and then now this is like the fire that has refined me. And now we get to walk in life and we can have joy and we can have peace and we can have fun and grief is there with us, but it's not defining us anymore.
I love it. And yeah, wow. Those are powerful words, powerful words. Okay. So let's jump into this. So I'm a little afraid to ask, what is your first question?
All right. So my first question is, knowing my story, knowing where I'm at in my season of life. Everyone's kind of told you can be a homesteader. I've heard it from you. And so I'm like, what can I do? I live in the city now. Most of my lawn is concrete, and I have these 4 kids. So what is something, I guess, simple that I could do to grow my own food to help with that grocery bill?
Microgreens. Microgreens are the easiest thing. You need a grow light, you need a couple of trays, and you need a windowsill. You don't even need a windowsill because you got the grow light. You need a little bit of soil that you can buy in a bag at a store. You need a tray. You need 2 trays. You need some microgreen seeds and a grow light, and you can grow microgreens. And they grow quick and microgreens. That's where I'd start. But let's talk about your backyard. Okay. So I'm going to make you like a little client here, So how much space do you actually have?
I'm not sure, off the top of my head. My house is 1,000 square feet. So I would say I know that's not how we do yards, but my backyard is roughly 1,000 square feet, and at least 500 of that is concrete.
Okay. Do you have planter boxes back there?
I don't.
Okay. So we could put in some planter boxes. Which way does your backyard face?
It faces south.
Okay. So it's very hot back there.
It's very hot, but I also have a lot of evergreen, so I've got they have pine needles, so mostly like pine needles kind of layer everything. So my question would be like, what?
Ooh. Yep. So you could easily grow, so you get some shade from your pine trees. You could grow lettuces and greens back there very easily. So you should never have to buy lettuce in the summertime ever. That's the easiest one to grow. I had a client last year. She signed on. She's like, I want to grow something. I've got this little space. It's in the shade. And she said, lettuce is going to be the hardest thing, but that's the thing that we eat the most of. And I said, nope, that's the easiest thing. That's what you're going to put into that space. And so, yeah, I would throw some lettuce and some greens, back there, spinach, a few things like that in some planter boxes. And then, yeah, we'd have to look at your space together, but, yeah, microgreens and your greens are the easiest thing to grow to just offset and get something green onto your plate. Along with meat. Meat's very important. I'm wearing a beef shirt today, so, it's very important. Eating protein is good. Are you a vegetarian? Hopefully I didn't offend you, but I'm all for the meat.
I'm not a vegetarian, so that's good news. I have a question about planter boxes, because it's kind of been on the internet lately, like how the wooden ones rot in Canada.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're going to make an investment into a planter box, or do you just get Rubbermaids and fill them with dirt? Does that work?
Do you remember the toilet paper wars of 2020? Are you worried about being prepared in an emergency? Are you tired of being a slave to the corporations we purchase from? It's time to take control. Become ungovernable. Take your food system into your own hands. Hi, I'm Dawn, a coach dedicated to helping you live like grandma used to. Self-reliant, resourceful, and prepared. Whether it's raising chickens, growing a garden, canning your own food, or even milking a cow, I'll teach you how to thrive and survive in the space you have, big or small. We can even potentially make some money off your homestead. Visit Dawn's Dirt today to book your free jumpstart call. Together, as a team, we can get you self-reliant and ungovernable. We, the people, have the power to take back control. Remember, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. Let's build a better future and a community, one skill set at a time. Yeah, so if you do that, they do heat up, so they get a little bit warmer. So water, you need extra water that way. But and you need drainage in the bottom. So if you have a Rubbermaid planter box and you put it in your backyard and you put no holes in the bottom and you fill it with soil and you fill it with seed and then you get a big dump of rain, what's going to happen? You're going to have a swimming pool, right? A soupy, mucky, mud pie swimming pool. So you got to make sure you have some drainage in the bottom. So I don't think Rubbermaids are the cheapest option. Honestly, I think regular 2x4s, screw them together, a couple on top of each other. It might not be the prettiest. And then throw some straw in the bottom and then throw some soil on top. That's going to be your cheapest option. It might not be your prettiest option. I've seen people do it with cardboard boxes. I've seen one of those little TikTok videos, pallets, when you think of gardening does not have to be expensive. It can be very budget friendly. You just have to be extra creative. And so are you willing to have it not as pretty? That's the question. And so, yeah, last year I had a client and she really wanted a greenhouse because greenhouse, it protects you from the hail and it gets you a little extra growing season. And so she found one of those old carports off of Marketplace, and it didn't have the canvas on it anymore. And she put a hunk of plastic on it. Ugly, but it worked. So that's the point, right? Yeah, you just figure it out and you function it and you do what's going to work. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. If you're on a budget, start out simple.
Okay. And then my next question would be, because I have kids, how do I contain it with the kids, running amok? One dumps their bike here. The next one throws a ball into your fresh dirt.
Yeah. So honestly, you know what? How old are your kids now?
My twins are 4, my daughter's 6, and my oldest is 12.
Okay. So you have a workforce, so they can help you. And again, I'm going to bring it back to my clients from last year. I had a client last year and she signed up for the program. She had a brown thumb, not a green thumb. I don't know how you'd say that. Black thumb. I don't know. She couldn't grow anything. And so she was working through it with me, and we were gardening together, and she got her kids involved. And the kids, she came back at the end of the season, and her kids were actually the ones that planted, and they weeded, and they helped, and they did it together. And she told me a story of her daughter who had they had some friends come over, and her daughter went to the planter box and picked out a carrot and said, I grew this. And so that's the thing. It can be a family affair, grow the food together, get your kids involved, get them to, if they're growing those carrots, they're going to pick those carrots out of the soil, wipe the dirt on their pant legs, and then eat that carrot. You're going to have the healthiest kids on the block, And so that's what I would do, is I would get your kids involved. And honestly, again, back to the lettuce being very simple. If the ball falls in there, the ball falls in there, lettuce will come back. It'll bounce back. So yeah, just roll with it, right? And get the kids involved. That's what I would suggest.
That's great. Actually, I feel like if they were involved, then they would be more cautious to begin with, because they're like, ooh, this is mine. Don't touch.
For sure. Absolutely. So have your kids grown gardens before, or have you done that with your children before?
So not really on my own property, but my son has helped, both of my siblings have acreages and big gardens. So he's gone and he's grown, and he seems to have a green thumb, because the one year the carrots didn't come up and his were popping up insane. So I feel like that kind of set him on a path where he's like, I've got this. I could garden.
Oh, see, and how fun is that? That it's just so empowering, right? And so, yeah, talk to the kids and see, what they want to do and what they want to plant. And I would say hire a garden coach, because, that's just what I do. But, I just think it's so special. And so tell me more about how that worked with your kids on your sister's acreages. And did your family have a farm? I mean, you're Dutch, so, did you have a farm? Tell me more about that and the experience that you had growing up.
So we didn't have a farm at all, but my dad did work at a greenhouse for most of my childhood, but not a vegetable greenhouse. He worked at a flower greenhouse.
So tell me more about that. You just got my juices flowing, because you say the word greenhouse. How big was the greenhouse that your dad worked at? Do you remember?
It kept expanding. There was 3 plants. They called them plant 1, plant 2, plant 3. And then as time progressed, it's by the time Dad moved on to a different job, it's there's so many plants. I drove by one day and I was like, oh my word, the greenhouse is all the way out in this field now. So I know that they do seedlings for vegetables, but I don't remember my dad doing that. Maybe he did. I was just a little kid. But yeah, bedding plants. So they would bring them all over Manitoba into Saskatchewan. That was my first job, bedding plants at the greenhouse. And that's really funny.
Tell me more about it, because honestly, I'm going to bring this back. We're going to pause on the questions, and we're going to talk about greenhouses, because, that's just, it was my world. I grew up in a 36,000 square foot greenhouse, and what you're describing actually sounds like probably maybe 30 acres of greenhouse. So I was shy of 1 acre. You're probably thinking that one was probably 10 or 20 or 30 acres, it sounds like, of greenhouse. And so, yeah, fascinating. So you went to work for your dad, who worked in this greenhouse, and what'd you do?
Yeah, so I didn't work for my dad personally. He was an employee of a bigger operation, but it was so it's run by Dutch people. And so it was what all us Dutch kids did. We all went and then got our first job. And so we just did transplanting. We'd start on spring break of our year off. And back then you could start when you were 14. So that's what we did. And it's so funny to think, because we had these trays and you would do I want to say poinsettias, but that's not the right word. It's escaping me right now. Petunias. And it's 6 in a row. So you do, one on the top and one on the bottom. And you'd go across and you'd finish your tray and you'd walk it down and you'd park it on the mat and you'd do the next one. And we didn't get paid, but we got paid by the hour, not by the piece. But you're at a table with 6 or 8 of you. So there's conversation and talking. And it's we learned the plants. My mom told me to plant marigolds the other day. And I said, Mom, when I had to transplant marigolds, they were awful. I'm they're silky and goldy, and we all swore we would never plant marigolds when we grew up. So it's like, it's so funny because that was like a core memory. I'm like, I've never forgotten how I felt.
I love it. I love it. And you know what? This just is a testament to, well, first of all, being Dutch. I mean, the Dutch are not cocky at all, hey? And so, yeah, the Dutch are known for greenhouses and dairy farms, which is how I ended up in the greenhouse industry. And yeah, that we worked when we were young. We're probably close to this. I think you're a lot younger than I am, but we're similar-ish. Well, I'll take it in age. And so we worked. Like, I had to work. If you didn't work, you didn't eat. And so you got a job in the greenhouse doing the things, you know. And my parents actually started off in the greenhouse industry when I was, well, 5. They started off with cucumbers, then they moved properties, and then they did bedding out plants, and then they built a bigger greenhouse, and they did more cucumbers, and then still more bedding out plants, and then they did cucumbers and bedding out plants. And so I grew up doing that, you know, transplanting and, you know, watering and doing all the things. And then when they sold their greenhouse and we built our greenhouse, me and my ex-husband, my parents actually took a portion of my greenhouse and put it into bedding out plants. And so they did bedding out plants for years. And then that's where our stories are, you know, cross paths a bit, is my dad passed away and my mom still did bedding out plants, you know, with her children. And the church came and helped her a lot too. And yeah, that's what my mom did for a living for the last few years. My sister was 12. My youngest sister was 12 when my dad passed away. And so that's what she did to raise my sister up. And then when my sister graduated high school, my mom just made different choices and got different jobs. And yeah, now she's happily married to another man again, but that's a whole other story. But yeah. And it was through the greenhouse industry, and he's Dutch, that they met and married. So yeah, pretty cool, you know? Yeah.
That is cool.
So yeah, it's that Dutch thing. It's the Dutch work ethic, you know, and that Dutch, you know, I'm just going to survive. That's what you've done, right? In your journey too. Just dig deep and do it. Or am I wrong?
No, that's totally true. It's interesting because like it's so ingrained in us, I think, that I don't think about it. So I remember like my mother-in-law was just visiting last week and we were talking about the younger generations and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like the middle of the road, right? That's kind of the life. And I says, but I don't feel like, I'm like, we have worth ethic. Like every job I've ever had, I've been told by my bosses, like, we can't believe what a hard worker you are. And I think you're right. Like, I think it boils down to, like, that's what we're taught. Like, that's what Dutch people do. They work hard, they show up, they do a good job, and they go home. And, you know, you might do a little bitching and complaining, but you don't do that at work. And you show up again tomorrow. Like,
right? And that's just it. The Dutch are known for their work ethic. And I think society, you're going to put me in the hot seat, but here we are just, you know, bragging about being Dutch. But the Dutch honestly are, if you look around the Netherlands, they are, what's the ingenuitous? I don't know what the word would be, but they built the dikes and the dams, and not in a bad way, not in a swearing way, but like they held the water out. They're farmers, they're agricultures. They were protesting, you know, when the UN and the, you know, WEF rules and bureaucracy is coming down. The Dutch are pretty, well, my ex-husband used to say wooden head, wooden shoes, wouldn't listen. And there is truth to that, but it's the tenacity, right? We're so direct and we're so bold and we work hard and we just grunt and get it done. Yeah. Yeah. You and I grew up very similar, very, very similar.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes I think you can be like, oh, this has been done that way and that, but I like, whenever I think back on my childhood, I'm like, that's the one thing I remember. Like, we were taught to work hard. Like, we don't feel entitled. Like, even with my own children, sometimes I'm like, excuse me, like, do you know what I had to do when I was 11? And
exactly. Exactly, right? I used to have to vacuum my mom. My mom would get mad, and hopefully she doesn't hear this. She's like, I used to say, my mom used to make me vacuum the house from top to bottom, and if I didn't do a good job. And so I tease her about it now, and she doesn't remember it quite the same way I do, but, you know, that's how I remember it. And, we had to work. And with my little kids, too, they were, you know, 2, 4, 6, and we'd be going through the grocery store, and they'd say, Mom, can I have a candy? And I'd look at my 2-year-old and say, sure, go get a job, and you can buy your candy with your own money, because, you know, you don't work, you don't eat. So have you been doing that with your kids then too?
So my kids are interesting because I have a 6-year gap between my first and my second. And so my husband was more of a spoiler. So we had, like, we struggled to figure that out in the beginning, right? Like, he wanted to give our son everything he didn't have, and I was like you don't work, you don't get it, you don't just get a candy for existing. And I've actually had to find a bit of a middle road where, like, I could be too hard the other way. Like, I used to, like, I was so bad, like, buying a coffee was so unnecessary and such a waste, and I could rant about it. Like, I'm sure I did when we were dating. And now I'm like, you know what? There's balance to life. There's nuance. But I'm glad that I was so opposite him so that our kids can have a bit of that ingraining where it's like, okay, mom's learned, like, even now I'll loosen up a little bit. Like, oh, you know, Tim's is having smile cookies and the proceeds go to Kids for Camp. Like, we can participate in that. Whereas in the past I'd be like, are you crazy? I'm not spending $2 on a cookie. I can make a whole box at home for her.
Well, that's just it. Dutch are known for being cheap too. I mean, let's just chat it out. Like, but I think it's that work ethic, that farming, agriculture. The Dutch. When I like, I'm here in Alberta, and when I hear someone's Dutch, I'm like, oh, are you a dairy farmer, pig farmer, chicken farmer, or greenhouse? Like, what are you? Because if you're Dutch, you're a farmer. Like, those two just go hand in hand. Your dad was a farmer. I mean, yes, he worked with someone else, but he was a farmer. He was in agriculture. Flowers are agriculture, and so yeah, like, that's just what we're known for. The Dutch, the hard work, the, you know, and being cheap. But part of it on a farm is being cheap. You know, you have to watch your pennies. If you're going to make your business work and your farm work, you got to watch where your money's going, right? And you got to make smart decisions and, you know, make the tic-tac-tician, make those pennies, nickels, and dimes balance out on a farm. Yeah, I love it. Okay, let's get back to what we were chatting about, like, what we're here for. Is do you have more questions for me for the hot seat?
Yeah, so let's say my kids make a lettuce garden or grow cucumbers or do strawberries. Now they want to sell them on the side of the road. Do I need to find a permit? Can they park up shop at the end of the driveway? Can they go to their grandparents? Like, is there any rules about that?
Well, first off, we're going to bring it back to the Dutch thing because Dutch are entrepreneurial and your kids have Dutch in them. So my kids are the same way. My youngest is, Mom, I got a business. I got a business idea. Mom, I got a business idea. And I think that's where we need to go back in society is we need to get these kids and, you know, people back into business and small scale. So yeah. I don't know about the bureaucracy. I don't do well with bureaucracy. In Ontario, where are you? Manitoba or Ontario?
Manitoba.
Yeah. Oh, I do know a little bit about the bureaucracy. There's not very much bureaucracy in Manitoba, actually, when it comes to farm to table, which that's what it is. When you start growing in your backyard, you're a mini farmer, right? You're gambling, putting some seeds in, you're gambling to see if they'll come up, you're gambling to, you know, cut them, and you're gambling to sell them. And so, yeah, that would be a great business plan. And just on a small scale with the size you have, put your little kids, get them to grow the lettuce. You could do like a mini business back there. In Calgary, I know of several people that had full-on businesses where they would turn their entire backyard into a growing space, and they would sell vegetables all summer. And so what a great way to teach your kids work ethic and business. And it took this much time. And so what are we going to charge for it and things like that? I love that idea. What's your thoughts?
No, that's great. Actually, like, my oldest especially, like, honestly, since the time he was like 4 or 5, like, he was like, I love that you said that because I never put it like entrepreneurial spirit, because he's like, I want to get a job. And I'm like, well, not really too many jobs for kids your age. And, you know, we tried like the juice stand and whatever, and he did okay. But I'm like, he does like to see the fruit of growing things. And so I'm like, if we could get him going on that, that would be a good way to use his energy. And then if he could make an income, and then he struggles with like, he's like a spender. Like, he gets that $20 and he wants to go to the store and he wants to spend it. So I feel like if he grew this lettuce from a seed, from a scratch, and you had to keep the squirrels out and all the things, he would realize, like, let's say I get, I don't know, $5 for this head of lettuce, but I put in, because before he'd be like, oh, $5, what's $5? Like, it doesn't matter. But if he had to see it from start to finish, then then maybe it would help him with his value of money. Because as a mother, I struggle with that sometimes. I'm like, why don't you understand? Like, my first job, I got paid $5 an hour. Okay. So I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I worked for a full hour doing all of these things. And it wasn't like, there was no slacking off in the greenhouse. Like, you did your job and you did it well, or like, they just let you go. Like, there is no peace and love for everybody.
Hey, I'm Dutch, you know, like, do your job or get out. Like, The only job I got, well, I can't say it anymore. I wish I could still say it. I used to say the only job I got fired from was working for my dad, but I can't say that anymore because I got fired twice last year. But it's just because I have work ethic. It's just because I raised the bar higher. It's just because I asked questions. It's because I wanted to see the company do better. But, you know, when you don't fit in a nice little box, you get fired. So, but anyways, that's a squirrel. I get a little squirrely sometimes. So back to your son, absolutely, he could be so entrepreneurial in the space you have. And, you know, if he has to take that $5, if he planted it and grew it and things like that, he also has to pay for the seed. He has to pay for, you know, like it's not just free money, right? Like in business, you have to take into consideration your time and your expenses and all the things. And so I actually coach on that as well. I do farm to table sales coaching for small homesteads and small farms and small businesses. And so, yeah, those are things that he needs to learn as well, that you can't just take that $5 and just blow it on candy. You have to save part of it because you have to buy your seed again. So I love that idea. How old is he?
12.
Wow. If he has that spirit now, I would nurture that. And yeah, man, that will take him far, far, far in life, further than a job ever would. Yeah. Are you homeschooling?
We did. After my husband passed, I sent them. So my twins are still at home, but I sent them to a private school. That's what works best for us in our season. And he's super extroverted. So it's been interesting to see because like I have this tug and pull. Like my heart is to homeschool, but him and I also really clash because he's an extrovert and I'm an introvert. And it's like, homeschooling is amazing. My siblings homeschool, half my friends homeschool. Like I say that all the time. I'm like, I'm this person stuck in this world, but it's okay. We grew up like going to school and we're independent thinkers and we're entrepreneurs. So I think society sometimes wants to say like, if your kids go to school, like they're never going to have these free spirits. And I'm like, that's not true at all, because look at all of us that went through the school system and here we are today.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's the thing. Like when I went to high school, again, we've got these bloodlines. We've already established that. And I went to a public school in Airdrie, Alberta, and I graduated a full year early. I got my diploma, but barely. I took all the basic classes, and the guidance counselors, they said, you need to come back next year so that you can, you know, like upgrade and go to college. And I was like, no. If I want to upgrade, I'll upgrade then, but I'm not doing this. And I never have. I've never been back to school for academics or anything to go to university or things like that. I have a small contract at a local, farm college here, and they asked me for my credentials, and I'm like, the school of hard knocks. Like I just started businesses and I worked, right? Like I have more hands-on training than all of many people put together. There's a difference between academic training and hands-on in agriculture for sure. I mean, you can tell someone the anatomy of a plant, but can you read the plant? Can you know what bugs are what bugs are on the plant or what nutrient deficiencies just by looking at a plant, right? Like it's just so different. And so, yeah, back to your son, school, no school. Again, I'm sure he's around Dutch friends, so they'll all figure out businesses together, right? So, yeah.
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 I don't know if this is your area of expertise, but yeah, like you've heard, I've seen the ads like for pine needle this and pine extract and that, and I'm like, they're literally falling from the trees and we're sweeping them off the deck. Is there a way that I could utilize that?
Well, that is not my area of expertise. I'm sorry. Like, and that's the thing. I'm so honest about what I know and what I don't know. And I think that's why I'm a decent coach, because I will say, like, I know about vegetables. I actually don't know a lot about fruit because it wasn't my world. I know a little bit about annuals, but I don't know a lot about perennials. Like, ask me about your like lilac bush in your backyard. I have no idea, right? And so I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And so, yeah, unfortunately, I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to your pine needle question, but I'm sure there's something, the internet, or maybe there's another coach out there that knows what to do with pine needles.
No, that's totally fair. I mean, I love that. I have a question about that. So do you, because you grow mostly vegetables, do you preserve them? Like, do you freeze them? Do you can them? What do you do with them? As someone who's never, like last year, my sister-in-law was going to teach me to can, and then I had to go get my kids before we got to the canning process. So I did the mixing. I'm a real good mixer. And then she gave me my nicely sealed jars. And I'm like, sweet, thanks, but I didn't learn anything I didn't already know.
Yeah. So the truth is, at this moment in my life, because of the sale of my farm, I'm not allowed to grow and sell vegetables in the province of Alberta for 5 years. That's my non-compete clause. And the truth behind it is, honestly, if I grew vegetables right now and set up anywhere near my former farm, I'd slaughter them. So that's just not right, and that's not fair, and that's not who I am. But yeah, like I gardened for fun for the first time last year. So I have a little, 8 by 16 foot greenhouse, and I got tomatoes and cucumbers out of there and basil. And I dug in a garden, like a full size plot. I've got 6 garden boxes. And so, yeah, it was fun for the first time last year. And so, yeah, I've done the canning and the freezing and the, dehydrating, and I've done all those things. I grew up like that. I was telling someone another time that my grandmother, that's all she did. We went to grandma's house for the summer, for a week in the summer. Again, Dutch dairy farm. So we'd milk the cows and we'd pick the stuff, and we'd have to sit and point beans. Like, go to grandma's house, you have to point beans, and grandma would can jars and jars and jars of beans. I can still remember the smell and the humidity, really, from her old farm kitchen. They lived in this old, like, it was a shitty old house. Like, there's a story one time of my uncle, and he was laying on the couch, and he was like, took his pellet gun and was like shooting mice that were like running through the living room, like that old, that shitty, whatever. But that's where my grandparents lived. And yeah, so I can still remember that smell and the humidity and the, just even the bubbling of her gas stove, bubbling the canning pot to boil the beans, because when you can beans, you have to boil them for 3 hours. And so, yeah, those are some pretty fond memories of just doing food, right? And so I just went on a tangent there. What was the question? Learning about canning?
Yeah, so is that part of what you do? Like, you teach people to garden, but then do you teach them how to preserve the food that they've now grown?
Yes, absolutely. So I've got canning portions, dehydrating portions, and then sales to farm to table sales and things like that. And so, yeah, like, I think that's where we need to head back in society. Our system is so broken right now, and people think that they go to the grocery store and that's where food comes from. And that is not where food comes from. And I'm sorry, like, if we ever get back to the 30s or, different periods in history, like, food is really important. And our system has gotten to a point right now where we are really reliant on this grocery system. You go to the store, you pick up your food, you go home, you cook it, you go to a restaurant. Like, what happens when all of that goes away? What are you going to eat, right? And that's why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing, is because I see that potentially happening, whereas I don't have to worry in my backyard. Even with my 6 planter boxes, my greenhouse, and my garden plot, I know where my food's coming from. I've got chickens, I've got a couple of pigs. I'm looking into getting some goats, that's important to me, and that's a value and a piece of society that we've lost. Did you grow gardens growing up? Did your parents have a garden, or did you just take it from the greenhouse, or what did you eat growing up?
So my parents are typical that, like, we went to the store, we bought the food. My mom never canned, never gardened beyond flowers. So It's interesting, actually, because, like, both of my siblings now went the route where they garden and they can and they do all of the things, but I've mostly lived, like, in the city or in an area where that just wasn't feasible. And then they married people who were into that and had experience where I didn't.
Okay. Yeah, and that's just the thing. Like, I just think it's a lost art. So even, you didn't do it, and so now you want to learn how to do it, right? And your siblings wanted to learn how to do it and are doing it now. Yeah, we just got to get back to it. We just got to go back to, and even in the cities, if you went back even 50 years, everyone had a garden plot in their backyard. They had a huge backyard and they had a garden plot and they grew food. Yeah, we need to go backwards in time, not this forward convenience system that we've got going on right now. Yeah, that's why it's important. So back to your original question, microgreens. Microgreens can be done in an apartment building anywhere. Like, you can grow greens for your salads, and you can grow a lot in a very small space. One rack in your home, which would be the same size as a china cabinet, let's say, you could essentially not buy lettuce or greens ever again.
Okay.
Yeah.
My son tried that. So I guess it's learning the basics. Like I should sign my son up for your course because he tried to grow lettuce and then it molded because he was like overwatering it and whatever, humidity and all that. So, okay, my next question is about like I
want to get back to that question and yeah, I want to get back to that. Just say what you were saying about your son. Talk more about your son and what he was doing.
Okay, so he's seen this YouTube video about growing your own lettuce. And so he's like, I'm going to grow lettuce. So, you know, he got the end of one of the lettuces and we put it in water and like it started to grow. But then he didn't do more with it. Like he just kept watering it. So eventually it molded out on the counter. So he's like, but I know that I can do this somehow.
Yeah. Absolutely. Your son, honestly, like sounds my ideal client, honestly. And we'll chat after this conversation here because like he's entrepreneurial and he wants to grow food and, you know, he could totally get a little business going with it. I am your son's biggest, maybe I want him on the podcast next, you know, like I love it that he just wants to grow food for people. He's a little mini farmer. That sounds amazing. Has he been exposed to farming?
No, totally not. Like, he just, he's one of those people that love life. So he would struggle with, like, friends have meat birds, and they're like, hey, do you want to come over on butchering day? And I'm like, no, like, his heart actually can't handle that right now. And he did, like, he went on a whole vegetarian thing a year or two ago, and I have friends who dabble in that, so I says, like, how do I support him? Like, I have strong opinions on it, but, like, how do I support him through this learning process? And it's funny, because, like, he figured it out on his own. By the end of 2 weeks, he's like, I just really want a burger.
I love it. But you let him try, right? Like, you know, you let him try and you let him fail, and he realized on his own that we actually need meat to survive, right? Hence the beef shirt. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, and he gets it and he understands it, but he still doesn't want to see it. Like, he rescued a mouse from our cat. Like, that's kind of where his heart is at. And then I threw the cat outside and he was like, how dare you? I saved it. And then
I love it. You know, he's probably more of a vegetable farmer than a meat farmer, potentially. But yeah, you kind of get used to it as a farmer. You kind of get used to doing what you need to do with the animals. It's always pretty, but yeah. Okay, so I love it. What was your next question then?
So here we're surrounded by lots of like different Hutterite colonies. Most people, well, they know or don't know. I guess it depends on where you live. But they're self-sufficient, essentially, right? They grow, they sow, they do all of the homesteading things, basically, that you're saying. And so I have access to that through various channels. And so am I better off doing what I've always done? You know, you just go to them, you get a box of tomatoes, you get your chickens, you know, already dead. Or...
You get your chickens already dead. I love that. Yeah.
So anyways, I guess my question is, you know, I can't have chickens here in the city. Maybe one day. My city's kind of one of those ones where I could fly. But I try to reach out. Like, I have a guy, you know, I get my meat from the butcher, and they deliver it to my door. I get my chickens from the Hutterites. In the fall, everyone's like, oh, I got extra tomatoes, I got extra cucumbers, and I've just learned, like, in my journey of being a widow, like, I'm not shy anymore. Like, you got free potatoes for me? Yes, I'll take your free potatoes. And can you store them for me? I can pick them up every second week, whatever. And, like, this past fall, I was really blessed. Like, I just ran out of potatoes, middle of March. So I'm like, potatoes are usually done September-ish out here. And so from beginning of October until the end of March, like, I didn't buy potatoes.
Someone was kind to you. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, the question is what's the point even? And the point is there's several points. So should you get chickens? Not necessarily if you don't want to. I mean, I'm a proponent that I think every backyard should have some vegetables and some chickens, but chickens are not even the one that the hill that I'd die on, as my rooster is crowing in the backyard, right? So I think you do what you can with your capabilities and space you have. So lettuce is really easy. The greens are really easy. A few carrots are really easy. Doing the easy things in the space you have, and then buying the things that you can't do or that are harder. And then you're doing the right thing already by going directly to a farmer. We won't get into the whole Hutterite thing. I think some are great and I think some are not great, but you're going directly to a farmer. You're not going to the grocery store, and that's amazing, right? So doing what you can in the space that you have, that's what's important, not so much what you grow. I don't think that everyone should have cows in their backyard. I don't think that everyone, I heard a quote a couple weeks ago, actually, from Dakota Cohen, and he said that everyone should be a producer, but not everyone should be a farmer. And what he meant by that is everyone should produce something in the space they have. But not everyone should be a farmer. Not everyone can be a farmer. And farming, like there is just, it's just bigger and harder, and not everyone should do it, but everyone should be a producer, even if you live in an apartment building. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that's actually good, because I think sometimes if you're more into the spaces that you and I are into, like, you hear it a lot, and then sometimes you're like, oh, I'm such a failure, I live in the city, I send my kids to school, like, I'm doing all these things wrong, and I don't take that on, but I mean, occasionally you're like, crap, did I do this all wrong? So it's just a good encouragement, if I can grow my lettuce or grow my tomato plant, doing a little bit is better than doing none. I couldn't live on an acreage with a cow right now, so it's not even... There's no point having that in my head.
And that's just it. That's the part that I get a little frustrated with, is the ideologies in homesteading, actually. Not everyone can do everything. Not everyone has the capabilities. I mean, if your son can't chop the head off a chicken, like, maybe he shouldn't have chickens, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but he might have a friend that can, butcher a chicken, I just think that we've put so much pressure on homeschooling. You got a little shy when we talked about homeschooling. We put so much pressure on homeschooling and homesteading and growing gardens, and that it's almost to the point that you feel like you have to do it. If you're in the circles, if you're in the tinfoil hat circles, you feel like you have to do that, and you're a failure if you don't. And I want to say, you are not a failure. Just do what you can in the bite-sized pieces in the space you have. You're not a failure. Just start thinking differently and doing exactly like you're doing, growing a little bit, doing what you can, going directly to a farmer, which makes a whole lot of difference. And then, going to the grocery store after that. And I think if we had all of society starting to make those shifts to just those simple things, growing what they can, going straight to a farmer, and then grocery store as a last resort, we the people, all of us collected, you, me, them, everywhere, we would change our entire food system, and we would turn it all upside down and flip it sideways. That's what we need. That's what I'm preaching. And that's what we're doing. And so don't be shy that you're not growing a full backyard full of, all the things, because your space might not work for that even, right? I just think we need a little bit of compromise. I don't know.
No, I love that, actually. I think that's great. That's great advice. Like, and seeing all the different sides and figuring out what, like someone said, and I love it, do what you can in the season that you're in. And then even when I bought my house, like, my brother's advice to me, because it doesn't have the backyard I wanted. I wanted a big backyard, touch that. But like right beside me is this huge open green space. And it's got big trees and lots of lawn. And he looks at me and he goes, there's your backyard, and you don't have to maintain it. He says everyone's buying things or doing things for a season that they're not in. He's like, but this is your season. Look, it takes you 5 seconds to cut the grass. That's what you need right now. And I'm like, okay. And it's funny because, like, I could know that in my head, but I needed that outside voice to, like, be like, no, don't be foolish, Dana. Like, take this gift that you've been given.
Exactly. And that's the point. Again, I'm going to bring this right back around to our conversation earlier and to your situation. Like, do what you can. And if we, the people, take our food system back into our own hands, whoever gave you those potatoes, like, wow, bless them. Like that is the epitome of what our food system, and I'm going to bring it biblical even here. That is what we are supposed to do as human beings, as to what Jesus taught us. Feed the widows and the orphans. And I'm going to cry a little bit. You're a widow, right? And so they are doing what they can in their space. And they gave you potatoes for your family. If everyone in society grew what they can to do what they can for their communities and for their people, never mind the government, if we just start doing that with one another, we, the people, can change our world. That's what we need. And so, wow, what a story. What a story.
I love that because it's interesting to me. Like, I used to believe the lies that people said too about what kids like to eat and what kids don't like to eat. And I fell into a bit of that with my oldest, but with my younger kids, it's like, this is your food. This is what I prepared. And then, even our language around it. So, I don't limit things. Sometimes I think maybe I should, but I don't. And I just say, like, how does this food make you feel? So we have healthy food, and then there's food that's a treat or it's a snack. And I don't know, we talk about it so much, I don't really think about it. Like, real food. I guess that's the word I say. So is this real food or it's not real food? Because, like, frankly, like, a chocolate bar is not real food. And so we had a guest for a week, and we ate a lot of, like, you know, chicken burgers and fish because that's what they wanted to. And one day I was putting one of my twins to bed, and he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, Mom, I really think my tummy just wants real food." And I was like, that's so cool. Like, this thing that I've been trying to ingrain in him, like, I didn't get it into his head by beating him over the head with it, but just like, this is how we talk and this is how we live. Like, you know, I make sourdough all winter long, and I haven't in the summer. And then, like, that balance where I've told the kids, you know, it's hard. Like, the humidity is weird, and one day it flops and the next day doesn't flop, and there's soccer 4 nights a week. So I'm going to buy bread throughout the summer, and that's okay too. Like, we can go back, and then just, like, realizing how we feel with our bodies. Like, I ate, you know, cucumbers in a homemade rice dish for dinner, and I feel pretty good, versus I ate that hot dog. The hot dog's not bad and it's not evil, but how do we feel with ourselves?
Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement. Absolutely. And it's the point of, and that, again, it comes back to the ideologies. You know, you're not going to die if you eat a hot dog, right? Like, I went to this basic human needs conference, and it was talking about the freedom of choice, you know, even the freedom of choice to have a McDonald's down the road, you know, that you can make that choice if you want to, you know, but the point is with homesteading and with, you know, our food system, we need to be able to make it easily accessible to make the choice to buy from a farmer or to grow it ourselves, right? Raw dairy is a perfect example of that. If you want to drink with raw dairy, like, it's tricky, right? And it's illegal, you know? And so, but it's around the freedom of choice. We should have the freedom of choice to drink raw dairy if we want to drink that. And we should have the freedom of choice to eat McDonald's if we want to eat that. But it's about the freedom of choice. Both, like, it's important. The freedom is what is important. It's not, you know, and then people can make their own choices. And the fact that you had a guest and they wanted to eat, you know, different foods, that's okay too, right? And you ate the different foods, and then your kids, you know, can eat the other foods, right? Like, you know, next week when the guest leaves, it's about making it not so black and white ideological. Like, that's what we need.
Yeah. I love that. I totally agree. It's like, I say it all the time. Like, there's so much gray in life. Like, we don't think that there's gray until we're put into a situation where it has to be. Like, I make this joke to my kids all the time. I'm like, solo mom Dana is doing what married Dana never would have. And, like, I had to let that go. Like, my kids eat cereal. Like, they've eaten more cereal probably in the last 6 months than they did the previous 6 years. Like, do I think it's a nutritious powerhouse? Of course not. But I also found that, you know, I was cooking this huge, big, elaborate breakfast every single day. It's what I used to do, but I used to have that partner to offset that. And now I'm like, now you're getting angry, stressed out, Mom. What's worse, the bowl of cereal today, or like a mom on the edge of overwhelm? And for me personally, and that's the thing where it's like everyone's going to make a different decision, and that's okay. But for me, it was like I needed to bring my emotions down, and that meant compromising on some of the things we ate.
That's the freedom of choice. And again, your kids are fed. They got something in their tummies, you know, like, that's what's important. It's not, you know, like, yes, is the eggs and the bacon and eggs, and I'd like to come live with you, please. But like, that sounds amazing. But I used to say it all the time on the farm. I sacrifice meals at my table to put food on others. I was at farmers markets a lot, and I ate off the back of food trucks. That's what I ate. I I grew this beautiful corn, and the only corn I ate in a season was sometimes the raw cob of corn that I peeled and ate right in my booth because that's what I had time for. And, the ideologies as well around farming. I think we're demonizing farmers for what they're doing on their farms. And we hear it from society. We hear it even from our regular mainstream governments and medias and things like that, that everyone's demonizing the farmer, right? It's not the farmer that's the problem. The problem is the middle guys, right? The ones that are taking the money, making the money, adding, preserving, all of those things. That's where the issue's coming in, And so it's about just having grace for the gray, just doing what you can do. When I had babies, when you were talking about cereal and things like that, when I had babies, I was more of like a show cow than a Holstein cow because breastfeeding did not work very well. I made it 1 month with my first child. I made it 5 months with my second child, and I only made it 3 months with my third child. My kids weren't breastfed for the most part. They got a bit, but they didn't get it all. And the reason for it is I was working so hard. I was out and stressed and, things like that. So my kids had formula. Is that the best for them? No, but fed is best. And it took a bit to work through that in my head, that I didn't breastfeed my kids till they were a year old, And so, but if you look at my 3 teenagers now, they're 14, 16, and 18. They're healthy. They're fine. They survived. The health nurse with my third baby, she said, here's the paperwork, and this is what you need to do with your baby and things like that. And I said, you can keep your paperwork. Thank you very much. I didn't kill the first 2. I don't think I'll kill this one. And she would laugh at me. And, we just need to all take a bit of a chill pill and just realize that we need to do what we can do, right? And grow some lettuce. You don't need to grow the lettuce. It sounds like your 12-year-old son can grow the lettuce, right? And, you're doing just fine. And that's the point, is we just got to slowly make different choices overall, and the little choices will add up to a big shift in society.
No, that's great. I feel like I want to circle back to the raw milk thing for a second. And it's interesting because, when we were kids, we could drink it. We had a milkman when I was a kid. We lived in town, but he would drive around and drop off milk. I don't know if it was every day or every other day, but somehow in that range of time, it became illegal. And it's really interesting because I remember thinking that everything they told us was true. If you drink milk, I had friends that lived on a dairy farm, right? Dutch community. And I was if I went to her house and had a drink of milk, I was going to get sick. She wasn't going to get sick because she drank that every day. But farm milk makes your stomach upset. That was kind of what we were told. And so as an adult going back and learning it, I'm that was just that was a lie and that was fed to us. There's no truth in it. But I didn't know that until I went looking for answers about it. Because my son asked me that too. He's why is it illegal? And I'm it's really dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can chat raw dairy. I love chatting raw dairy. So the thing with raw dairy is back in the day, they had their dairy farms, and so they would bring their raw milk. Back in the far, far days, you would have a couple of cows in town or whatever, and that would provide the milk, and that raw dairy was fine. Then they got into these cities, and they started having their dairy farms inside the cities, and people would put their chamber pots out the window, and it would run down, and the water in the water, and the cows would drink that contaminated water, because we really don't want to be drinking, feces. And so it got into the milk system, and that's where you had the problems. And so then they started pasteurizing the milk to kill off those bad bacteria that were in your milk. So yes, that's a problem. But if you have raw dairy, if you have a cow that's drinking good water, eating great food, off a dairy farm, large scale dairy farm or a small scale dairy farm, those cows are healthy. Those cows are going to be producing good milk if you look after it properly, if you cool it quickly and then drink it, within a reasonable time, or, I just think there's so many misconceptions around raw dairy. I know of a family that their children, had very severe, problems with dairy, store-bought dairy. They got sick. And this mom actually got her hands on some raw dairy, and the kids drank it and they were fine. And then now they can have a little bit of raw dairy, or a little bit of regular dairy, store-bought dairy. And so when they go to a play date and they get fed an ice cream cone, they can handle it. And so it just resets their tummies. And I know my oldest and my youngest child, not that we know where to get raw dairy from, but my oldest and my youngest child, they'll eat a piece of pizza because we've got freedom of choice. They'll eat a piece of pizza. And if we haven't had raw dairy in a while, because we have it on and off, if they haven't had raw dairy in a while, their stomach will start bothering them again. They get some raw dairy and boom, they can eat the pizza again for a while. And so I don't know what it is. And we have just been taught that this fear around raw dairy. Like but it's not truthful. It's not, it came from a good place. We shouldn't be feeding our cows shit water, but there was a reason and a purpose, but it's not, we've got too much bureaucracy. Canada is one of the countries that has the most bureaucracy in our food system. Like, thou shalt this and thou shalt that according to the government. And we, the people, need to take that back. So
that's good to know. Yeah, I like that. Because I'm like, I don't know that, right? I don't know that we have the most, but you would as a farmer. All the rules. Like, I know the bits, and the raw dairy I know is a big thing. It's fascinating to me about the stomach issues. I'm going to experiment with that with my own children.
Right? So I don't know where you can get it, but on a back street corner someplace, and it's stupid. It's so stupid. We can buy drugs easier with less penalties in Canada than if we meet somebody on a back corner and get a jug of raw dairy. At the same time, I'm not necessarily for the legalization of it either, because then they'll bring in their bureaucracy around that too, and it'll just cost the farmers more. So I don't know where it all lands. I just am for freedom of choice for all of everything. Left, right, up, down, doesn't matter. Here we are into politics. We've brought in religion. We'll talk about politics. That's dirt, Dawn's dirt. We'll talk about it all.
Yeah. I love it. That's life.
So any last thoughts? Any last questions?
I don't think I have any last thoughts. I did appreciate this. Like you said, we've covered it all. That's life. We can't escape any of it. So it's all relevant. It's all fun. So thank you for taking the time to share with me and let me pick your brain a bit. I'm definitely excited to tell my son. Yeah,
I love it. We should talk. So I loved, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. Now let's chat you. Where can people find you, and who are you?
So my name's Dana Maddeaux. You can find me on Instagram at Dani_M. I chat, I'm a widow. I want to help other widows, but I just want to raise awareness for grief, what you can do, what you shouldn't do. And lots of people don't know all these things. I've been there, lived it. So I can share insight on what not to say, how to respond kindly, all those different things. And then just reclaiming motherhood. Let's find joy in it. It's hard. Of course it's hard, but everything in life is hard. Someone once said to me that I give too much to my kids. And I says, you know what? I don't think that we can actually. There is a balance where, I did need to probably shower more, but in a season of 3 kids in 18 months, there was a lot going on in my life. And so, I want to show people that I was there. I was in the trenches. I had, life was hard with a husband, and then my husband died. And so let's navigate it. Let's talk about the hard stuff. Nothing's off the table. My DMs are open. And
yeah. Thank you so much. So if you're a grieving person today, reach out to Dana. So much insight. I feel like we could talk for hours. So really appreciate you being here. So thanks so much for your time.